Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, Anthony Davis makes history as the Lakers pick up a big win against Minnesota. We'll tell you about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one is always free and never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 23,000 subscribers, all of whom are marveling at what Anthony Davis did on Sunday against Minnesota. 120-109 win for the Lakers. Anthony Davis makes history in this game, and we'll tell you all about it as the show goes on. Do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? We'll take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. So, we'll talk about some moves that Darvin Ham made. We'll talk about where the standings look, Andy, after a good weekend for the Lakers, and a little break in the schedule, which could help them out. But let's start with Anthony Davis. You note on the show notes here a monster line from Anthony Davis that almost doesn't describe it correctly. It is a 27-point, 25 rebound, 5 assists, 7 steals. The first time anybody has ever gone for 25, 25, 5, and 5 with steals is that last one. And he was only 2 blocks away from the 5x5. This was a dominant performance from Anthony Davis.
Jackson Hayes was on the podium after the game with Austin Reaves. Jackson Hayes, I mean, obviously his night does not stack up to Anthony Davis's, but in his own right, I thought Hayes had a pretty good game. 4-4 off the bench, plus he made his one free throw, 9 points,
he should
5
not
rebounds.
let himself feel like inadequate just because of that.
Well, no, I'm really just explaining why he was up at the podium, because it's unusual for Jackson Hayes to have a podium game. But he said afterwards, the man had 27 and 25, so that's really saying something. That's almost 30 and 30, which, like, yes, we can all do the math. We can all figure out how close that is to 30 and 30. But what Hayes was getting at is how staggering the idea of 30 points, 30 rebounds actually is. Mm-hmm. Like, that is an absolutely astonishing total, which AD became extremely close to. He had 10 offensive rebounds. To put it in perspective, Minnesota had 11 as a team. AD had 10 by himself. And that's not even talking about the 5 assists, the 7 steals, the 3 blocks. I mean, he also got to the line 13 times, in part because he grabbed 10 offensive rebounds, got fouled in the process of that a lot, made only 9, which I'm sure when AD thinks about the totality of this game, because he cares about how he does at the line, I think he's taken pride at this year being pretty good at the line, that will bother him. But the scope of this game that Anthony Davis had, and I know people will point out there was no Rudy Gobert for Minnesota, there was no Karl Anthony Towns for Minnesota, Naz Reid is not necessarily a defensive presence inside. All of that is true. If it were that easy, though, to get 27 and 25 against a second-string guy, second-string centers play in the NBA all the time, and this doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, this is a monster.
The caveat here is right. The caveat here is all the offensive rebounds. Others would have been harder, no question. But like, Anthony Davis' shot chart is stunning in this game. He didn't take a jumper, and so, which I didn't realize, and so it was sort of pointed out, and I went and looked it up. Like, I looked at it, like everything was underneath, and this. We'll talk about it, maybe not as much in detail for this show, because we actually have a couple days this week of non-game days, which is important to talk about. Like the offense had some of the wildest swings that we've seen within games for the Lakers all season long,
yeah.
where the first half, they were shooting, I think they shot over 60% in the first half.
They did.
The third quarter was a catastrophe. The fourth quarter had moments that was phenomenal. And the whole time the Lakers were turning the ball over at an insane clip. So what held the offense together were the amount of times that Anthony Davis gave them second opportunities, third opportunities, scored points on possessions that didn't deserve them because he got offensive rebounds or opened the floor up that way. It was a deeply meaningful and impactful performance. And if you want to say the Lakers can't take much of it because no Gobert, no Towns, fine, but don't devalue the performance that Anthony Davis gave on Sunday, in the interests of more meta thoughts.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's kind of funny for all of Anthony Davis's work on the offensive glass and the amount of time that he got sent to the line. And this may be just like a factor of how second chance points are calculated, what is considered a second chance point. The Lakers only had 8 second chance points in this game, which felt extremely low when you just thought about how many different times, if nothing else, guys got to the line because of those second chance opportunities. But you mentioned like what you take away from this with the Lakers in terms of beating this team with no Gobert, no Karl Anthony Towns. I guess you can take away whatever you want from it, except for the fact that when the Lakers lost their first 2 games against the Wolves this year, both of which were on the road, the first loss, which was only by 7, they didn't have LeBron. And the second loss was that 108-106, where LeBron had a potentially game-tying 3 with like 3 seconds left, and the replay ruled him toe on the line, even though you could see daylight between his toe and the line. It may have been it was about where he started rising up. Like it was extremely.
It was controversial to say the least.
LeBron went ballistic after this game. But the point being, though, Minnesota is considered one of the best teams in the West. They've spent a lot of time this year at the top of the standings, and the Lakers either played them incredibly while shorthanded or got screwed on one of the losses at full strength, again, on the road. So, yes, there is context that has to be remembered in thinking about this win, but I would not use that context to completely devalue what the Lakers did tonight, because I'm pretty confident the Wolves did not use that context to devalue their own wins.
Yeah, and it should be noted, Davis played this game, only 2 days after playing one-armed against Milwaukee on Friday.
He was like the villain in The Fugitive, Brian.
He was. You find that man. Found that man.
It was Anthony Davis.
He had a lot of statistics on Sunday, and so it's one of these things where you look at it and you have to be impressed by. He was playing through pain, and he talked about it after the game, and he didn't want to make a thing out of it, but he was, Mike Bresnahan from Spectrum kind of put it out to him, and his shoulder must feel okay. And he was like,
no, not really.
No, not really. I mean, he didn't say it, but he kind of looked at him.
He said that it got better as it
went
along.
He said like when it,
times,
you know what I'm saying? Like he said, well, and when it's warm, it felt okay, whatever. But I think, the setup of the question was
said it hurt at times.
But the setup of the question was meant to be like, it came back and felt great. He just kind of looked at Mike for, a few seconds and was like, yeah, not so much. No, it didn't at all. So it was, these are these games. I understand the standard to which Davis is held is remarkably high, and
and holds himself
right. And generally, it really should be. And the margin, he has less margin for error because the Lakers have less margin for error. And when he doesn't perform at an MVP level, there often isn't enough sort of slack there in the rest of the roster to make up for it. And that doesn't happen as much with other elite teams. Jason Tatum can have an off night. Boston is, better equipped to pick up the slack there. But so on a night like Sunday, when he is playing hurt and they need him to literally play big, because that's the advantage they're going to have, for him to come up with not just a big performance, but a historically big performance, like that line has never been done before, really ought to be pointed out.
Yeah, he's the first Laker to get 25 rebounds or 25 plus since 2013. Probably guess who it was, Dwight Howard. So you're going a decade since something like this has happened. Dan Wojcicki had tweeted out, and he tweeted this a little bit before AD's final line, but he said since 1983, 1984, only 2 players have had 20 plus points, 20 plus rebounds, 7 plus steals. Hakeem Olajuwon twice, Charles Barkley, and no player has ever had 20, 25, 7 steals, 3 blocks. So that's incredible company. And, they're Hall of Famers, and AD is a future Hall of Famer himself. But that is just, again, staggering. Like Austin Reaves had a funny line afterwards. He was being interviewed by Mike Trudell, sideline reporter for the Lakers, and he was read AD's stat line, and he said, quote, "Usually I just say he's supposed to do things like that, but that's impressive."
Yeah.
It's hard to feign like, well, that's just AD being AD. That's a holy bleep.
Yeah, there was some other stuff going on in this game, including some work from Darvin Ham that gave you an indication of where he thinks the Lakers are this season and how important these games are. And so we'll get to that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store. It's built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment center. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure, and the Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It's got room up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, advanced available 4x4 capability, plus 284 horsepower, up to 6,000 pounds towing. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
So there were a couple little things we didn't get to. By the way, Department of Corrections and Retractions, I believe one or both of us called the 44-point effort that D'Lo had Friday against the Bucks a career high. It was you. Okay. Pointed out to us. Well, you didn't correct me. It was pointed out to a few times.
In fairness to me, I wasn't listening, but it was okay. Actually you.
Right. No, it's touche. That was in fact it was pointed out to us a few times on the YouTube channel, not a career high. Scored over 50 when he was a member of the Warriors. It was obviously his high with the Lakers, but that is not his entire career. So thank you very much for that. We do want to be as accurate as possible, but there were a couple little things in these back and forth that possessions where it was noted that the Lakers, Darvin Ham was getting Russell off the floor, defensive substitutions, offensive substitutions in these final moments of the game, and then Damian Lillard was left on the floor by Doc Rivers when people were wondering maybe if that was not such a great idea. So little coaching things that we didn't get to for that one. It was interesting in this game, Andy. Darvin opened the fourth quarter with the starters, minus Rui, adding Taurean Prince, which before everybody freaks out is a reflection of the size of Minnesota's lineup, not how he thought Rui was playing. Minnesota was very small in this game. But he went with that group the entire quarter, all of it. Like, they were not going to mess around with this game, especially given how sketchy the bench has been. And the third quarter, it was like watching it's as if they put you and me on the floor. Like guys like couldn't pass, they couldn't dribble, nobody could get a clean shot because like it was stunning, the transformation and just how bad the offense was when they gave up that lead. It was 13-1 Minnesota run that ate up the entire Laker lead. 14-1, I think it was.
They shot in the third quarter 8 of 22 overall, 36%. And that was with LeBron going 4 of 6. So if you remove that, they're going 4 of 16. I mean, they were just absolutely atrocious in that third with 6 turnovers to boot. Like, were it not for the fact that they shot 2 of 5 from the field, which is at least efficient, if not particularly prolific or productive. I mean, they things were just starting to inexplicably fall apart. Anthony Edwards was starting to heat up a little bit. He did not have a particularly great game in this one, but that third quarter, he was starting to heat up. He had 10 points on 4-7 shooting. And the Lakers also just kept turning the ball over. Like, they had 21 turnovers in this game, 28 points given up to Minnesota off turnovers in a game where Minnesota was held below 110. They only had 2 turnovers, though, in the fourth quarter. Like, that was as big a difference as anything in terms of just creating permanent separation. And they looked like a different team just by virtue of stop doing really dumb bleep out there.
Well, I mean, look, it's one of those things where, we can talk a little bit more about this in the next segment as well. But like the Lakers, Minnesota's record notwithstanding, and their spot in the Western Conference notwithstanding, and the fact that they do have a lot of depth on this team. It's like they're a good team, even missing Towns, missing Gobert. Fundamentally different when they're missing
TJ Warren's now on this team. I had no idea. I'm watching him like, that guy looks just like TJ Warren. And I'm like, oh, that is TJ
Warren.
They just signed him to a 10-day.
Right.
And I didn't know.
Like, they've got good talent. They've got good players. But with no Gobert and no Towns, and the Lakers at home, where they are the Lakers' home record is really good. I think 24-10 now. I think they ran it to after the win on Sunday, like
24-11.
24-11. That was close. They've beaten Oklahoma City, Minnesota, asterisk if you want, fine, and Milwaukee in the last, 8 games. I mean, they can beat anybody.
Not far removed from a 21-point fourth quarter comeback against the Clippers.
That was insane. But they're 6 games over 500 now, Andy. And so, like, by the way, this line, was so good from AD that we have not yet mentioned that LeBron both returned to the lineup, which is obviously really good, and played quite well over 38 minutes, 10 of 16, 7 of 9 from the line. So he was attacking, really playing downhill through most of this game. Only took 4 threes, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and a plus 14 on the night, 29 points. He actually led the Lakers in scoring. Like, that normally is the line you look at and say, well, there's your star line of the night. And they're like, no. Austin Reaves with 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 of 6 from 3, like, might as well not have played. But anyway, I was pleased that Darvin went that direction, and just put the starters back in, wasn't messing. The bench is a problem, Andy, but this game was way too important in a game they needed to win for them to get away. And Darvin pulled the right string, I think, on Sunday.
You look down that bench. I mentioned Hayes played well, but the matchup wouldn't have made sense for him. Dinwiddie was okay, but nothing great. Max Christie, Cam Reddish did
17 minutes.
Cam Reddish did not play tonight. That ankle, and I guess maybe the decision has been made that Max Christie just isn't going to play. But at some point, I feel like Darvin and the team may need to just make a decision about whether Reddish is a viable thing or not, just because I feel like they're trying to force him into the rotation. His ankle and lower extremities are clearly not reacting well to getting back out on the court. He keeps having, one game in, one game out, one game in, one game out. And I feel like that does not help them, just build continuity, build fluidity. Like I would like to see Darvin give Christie a little bit more of an opportunity. But if you're not going to do that, I think you should start planning for something that doesn't involve Reddish either, because I feel like this is just herky-jerky.
I agree. Let's take a break and come back and talk about where the Lakers stand now after a nice weekend, because it looks different than it did after Wednesday, to say the least. Still got some work to do to make to make some moves, but it's there, and we'll lay it all out for you next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn, it's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. It's so easy. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So think about that. Finding whoever you need the first time within a day, it gives you that much more time to focus on the big picture goals for 2024. LinkedIn even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process quicker, more streamlined. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
One of the things that allowed Darvin to lean into the starters, 38 minutes, whether it's 38 minutes for LeBron, playing these guys basically through the fourth quarter, was because they actually have some time this week for guys to recover. They play on Wednesday in Sacramento, don't play again until Saturday. So one game in between Sunday's win and then the game against Golden State on Saturday. They're not going to practice, but that gives AD 2 days off. It gives LeBron 2 days off. It's a short flight to Sacramento, so it's not even like these guys are going to have to be on an airplane for a long time. This is a nice and badly needed little space to try to get guys feeling better.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's not just that they've got 2 days off in between. Sacramento, who they are chasing in the standings, and they're now just a game and a half behind them, they're going to be playing the Bucks the night before. So this is going to be the rare time this season. They track this sort of thing. The Lakers have been on the low end of the NBA when it comes to rest advantages. This is going to be the rare game where they have a rest advantage over the team that they're going to be playing. So that in and of itself is huge. Also, I was looking up at the old Tankathon, the site that keeps track of both where teams might fall in the lottery standing, their odd, but also too the remaining strength of schedule. As of this recording, and things can be fluid, who knows what it's going to look like by the time the Lakers play the next game or the next few, but the Lakers are currently down to 17th in the NBA for remaining strength of schedule, which is awesome because it felt like every time I checked, their schedule kept getting harder.
Well, it was like
play it
third for a while, and
well, it kept getting more difficult. Like every time they play a tough team, and then I'd look and the schedule's hard. I'm like, wait, they just played one of the hard teams, but they're now down to 17th as far as the teams that they are most directly chasing. Phoenix still number one overall. Phoenix's schedule is rough. Sacramento, we just mentioned they're playing the Bucks the night before the Lakers. They're still at 7. The Mavericks are 21 and Golden State 23, but the Lakers are much closer now to those teams at the bottom of strength of schedule than towards the top. So they are handling. It hasn't always been pretty. It has occasionally been downright upsetting, but for the most part, they're handling their business for the most part. How much that inspires you, will, I think, vary from Laker to Laker fan, or I don't know, Laker to Laker podcaster, but they are handling their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's if you go back, they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4 games in their last 13. And now you talk about the schedule at Sacramento. Okay, not an easy one there. At home against Golden State, not an easy one. But then you get the Hawks, a banged up Sixers team, the Pacers, who are a good team but beatable, and then that's at home. And then you got the road trip, and it goes Milwaukee, okay, but the Grizzlies, the Pacers, the Nets, the Raptors, the Wizards, and then you're home against the Cavaliers, who knows what they'll be doing at that point in terms of trying to get guys healthy, where they'll be situationally seeding wise. Same thing about the Timberwolves. The Warriors will most certainly be going hard to try to win that game, you would think. Although with Steph out right now, they could end up cementing the 10 spot relatively soon. Who knows? The Grizzlies and the Pelicans. So like it does get a little bit easier, a little bit, it opens up a little bit more from here. And yeah, you look at the loss column, the Lakers still tied with the Warriors in the loss column. The Warriors have 3 games in hand on LA, which is why you really can't make any of the same sort of predictions I just said about maybe the Warriors can lock themselves into that 10 seed, because they do have those 3 games in hand. But the Lakers 2 games behind Dallas in the loss column. Okay, that's not crazy. Sacramento, it's 3, but they can narrow that by 1. They do have to clear both Sacramento and Dallas in the standings. But Phoenix, they're only 3 games behind Phoenix in the loss side, and the Lakers have that tiebreaker. So, there is still the possibility of some movement. And I will be honest with you, they have come through this part of the schedule and this stretch of schedule. I realize it's not over yet, but they've come through it to this point better than I expected them to, especially getting guys injured.
Well, and also too, especially after that loss to Sacramento, that loss to Sacramento felt incredibly damaging in the moment, just in terms of opportunity cost, but also where they would be in the standings and the idea of how much further up or down can they climb. But once you remove some of the emotion from your immediate reaction, like in the first 24 hours, you just start realizing like it's fluid for these other teams too. Like it is, I think we've spent so much time with the Lakers over the last couple months winning, but not moving up in the standings at all, that after a while, it's just felt like impossible for it to happen. But like we're seeing right now, it's not necessarily probable, but it's not impossible either. The other thing I was thinking about too, looking at the standings, and were I to bet on this to be a scenario, I'm betting it won't be, but there is a possibility that by the time they play the Pelicans in that last game of the season, the Pelicans could be locked into a seed one way or the other, and might decide that it's not worth putting Zion and BI and CJ McCollum and like the guys who matter out there. Again, were I to bet on this, I'd bet it wouldn't happen. But 3 weeks ago, I thought no way in hell it's going to be too stacked up. There's starting to become some daylight right now between the teams ahead of the Pelicans and the teams behind the Pelicans.
Couple games.
So who knows?
A couple games with Phoenix. It's one of these things where,
I mean, if Phoenix starts winning, this whole thing becomes irrelevant because they're not going to catch Phoenix.
No question. But they could also be locked into a 6 as opposed to a 5. There's a lot of wiggle here. And I mean, this is what Davis and I think some of the other players were kind of talking about when they say, the seat, why they say like the seeding doesn't matter. Obviously, they know it's better to be a 9 than an 8. It's better to be a 7 or 9 than a 10. It's better to be a 7 than an 8, and it's better to be in the top 6 than all those other ones. But they can't control that at this point, other than we can win our games, and we can do that. We can give ourselves an opportunity to just play better and win games, but we can't make that translate into 3 or 4 extra games in the standings where suddenly we jump from a 9 or a 10 to a 6 or a 7. Like, we can't control that part of it. And if we focus on that part, like Jesus, we won 9 of 13, I think is what I just said. 9 of 13, including some really big wins against the best teams in the league, and we're still the flipping 9 seed. If you focus on that, you get annoyed and frustrated and all that other stuff, and you lose the focus on what you can control. And this way, they keep it, as LeBron would say, they keep the main thing, which is just play better, play with more consistency. And then when you get there, wherever you are, you have a chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is what makes this time in the NBA season so exciting and so riveting, because it feels like it just feels like a lot is happening right now. And the Lakers, maybe they don't look like they're rounding into championship form, but they certainly look like they are rounding into a team that if they're in the playoffs, you're not going to want to see them unless you're Denver.
Yeah, I think it's probably true. I mean, it's funny, like, and we'll talk about this week. Like, I don't think there is a team in the West that I really want to see. There are some that I would be like more than others, but
it's all relative.
It's all relative.
Right. If it's a competitive conference, you don't underestimate any team that's in the playoffs. And this year, the West has been unusually competitive.
Right.
But want is a relative term. But I can tell you, looking at the standings, the teams that I want more than others.
We'll talk about it this week. Like like Golden State's lost a couple games in a row, but that's with Steph hurt. Like when Steph was healthy, that team had really hit a stride. Like they're all dangerous, and it's going to be an amazingly, just the play-in this year in the West is going to be brutal. So plenty to cover this week, and Lakers can do so with really going into the week feeling good about themselves. Coming off, again, you beat Milwaukee on Friday, and then you turn around and beat Minnesota on Sunday. It's a healthy weekend, and they actually have a chance now to get their players healthy. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to hang out with over 23,000 subscribers. Leave your questions, leave your comments, leave your corrections for the things that I do wrong, and we will read them on the air. So we'll be back tomorrow with more, hopefully some updates on guys. The what might be coming for Christian Wood and Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent, whether those guys might be getting back sooner rather than later. Hopefully more updates around all that stuff. I will see everyone tomorrow.